Hey, everybody. Welcome to Buffalo Plus, the Buffalo Plus YouTube page. Mike Catalana in. There's Bills news coming today. We've done a complete podcast. If you check it out on this channel, Dan Fates, Jenna Cottrell, and I talking about the Bills moves and their offseason plan. One of the things we hinted at actually happened today, and that was the release of wide receiver John Brown. And I know John Brown was one of those guys a lot of fans enjoyed watching. He was one of those players that really started to help turn this culture around in Orchard Park. The fact that he was a veteran wide receiver who could really help Josh Allen was a great thing. And I think John Brown ended up being a really good signing for the Bills. But I think we saw this coming with the advance of the way Gabe Davis played, plus the whole salary cap issues and everything that played into it. And a few times over this period of time, we've gone over how the Bills plan to handle this. And this was even pre-pandemic, pre-knowing that revenues were going to be down. The salary cap was going to be down. And I have a soundbite from basically a year ago before all this started. And we were at the Combine in Indianapolis, and the Bills were looking to draft a wide receiver. And this was before they had even made the play to get Stefon Diggs. This was just when they were trying to figure what they wanted to do, maybe take a guy in the first round. And we were trying to figure out what type of receiver they were going to go for. And I asked Brandon Beane about the way you look at the position, and he did not use John Brown's name specifically, but listen to what he said and how it ended up playing out that John Brown is gone and Gabe Davis should take that spot. Does it matter who you have currently at the position when you go to make the draft pick? Meaning, like, we think in terms of, oh, you're going to fit in because of what you already have, but you're hoping this draft pick's with you for 5 or 10 years. So how much does that come into play when you're actually making the pick?
Yeah, I mean, again, back to competition. You bring it in, you let him compete it out. Maybe in year one, he doesn't necessarily beat out the veteran, but he earns some playing time, learns, how Sean and I want to do things, on the field, off the field, and maybe it's in year two, but you've got him on a cost certainty basis for at least 4 years. And, that helps you, if you add it there, maybe you move on from the veteran player that he took over in year two and allows you to sign another position at a, position of need, in 2021.
All right, so he's not mentioning John Brown by name, and Brandon Beane would never do that in terms of specifically talking about moving a player that way. It was hypothetical at the time. They didn't have Gabe Davis on the roster, and they didn't know how he would work out. But when you look back at it, you say to yourself, it's exactly the scenario that he painted. You draft a guy, he showed right away that he can play, and John Brown, getting a little older, some injury issues. He was still a very good player in the NFL. But if you're the Bills, you see other moves they're making, you cannot afford to keep everybody. This is a good football team, a really good team. Guys are starting to get paid, and this year the cap is down. So it's not a stunning move today. It's still kind of tough because this was a guy people loved. Smoke was a, really good player for this team. And I think he helped those other players a lot. I mean, Stefon Diggs deservedly gets credit for obviously being a number one and helping out the young players. But when John Brown came to this team along with Cole Beasley, the Bills had the worst wide receiver group in the National Football League. They were not a professional group. And John Brown started to change that because that's what John Brown is. And he's going to get a job in the league. He's not going to make as much money. He's going to get a job in the league somewhere. And it's a shame because he helped get the Bills to where they are. But I think a good team still going to find a spot for John Brown on it. So hopefully he does well. But in the short term for the Bills, you move on because they have needs at other places. They've got to get down to the cap. There are signing bonuses, like Brown had a roster bonus coming. Quentin Jefferson is another guy. They signed him in the offseason and he did not have a great year, wasn't that impactful for them. So you can see how this happens. Teams are making moves. And I will go to something. Teams don't cut players they don't want to keep. I mean, it rarely happens. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean they are bad players. I'm saying is they've realized they either have to move on from them because they're going to play young players because they're in a rebuild, or in the Bills' case, because they have other needs, and they're a team that's this close to making it to the Super Bowl last year. So there are moves you make, and this cap year is down, and some other moves. Reports are that Vernon Butler is going to take a pay cut and come back. We saw that already with Mitch Morse. And, I got a kick out of the reports that it was mutual. Yes, I will say it's mutual because the team says we need you to do this. There's a number they come to an agreement at. It's good for the Bills. It's good for that player. Because if they didn't want that player back, they would release him. But they do want him back. So a guy like Vernon Butler is a guy they want back. A guy like Mitch Morse is a guy they want back. And with Quentin Jefferson, I just feel like they can save that cap space and go out and get additional help on the defensive line. So interesting moves, and they're not even close to done. It's by next week, next Wednesday, that they have to be down under the cap, and then free agency is beginning. So if they're going to spend money, they have to knock some more off the books. Restructuring is still going to happen. And we all know, as we talked about again, our Buffalo Plus podcast, if you want to check it out, we talk a lot about Josh Allen and his circumstances with his contract. Thank you, Dak, for getting that big deal, because that's sort of a jumping off point for Josh Allen. But all that will still need to be figured out. What the Bills are trying to do is improve in some areas of weakness and basically take their areas of strength, like wide receiver, and say, we love you, John Brown, but we're going to move on from you. Play the younger player. They'll probably be drafting another wide receiver, or maybe even some of the guys that didn't get as much time get more of an opportunity coming up this year. Plenty more. Check out Buffalo Plus all the time. We will keep you up to date on everything going on with this team as it happens. Also, buffaloplus.com for the written stories on exactly what's going on with this team as they happen. And make sure you follow Dan Fates, Jenna Cottrell, and myself, Mike Catalana, on Twitter, because that's where you'll get most of your updates. So thanks for watching here on Buffalo Plus. And what happens with the Bills as they get set for what should be a wild run into free agency for the entire NFL. Lots of veterans on it, including Quentin Jefferson and John Brown from Buffalo.